My question to you is it possible that it's time for us to move on from Trump? Stay tuned. We're going to talk about it.
Welcome to the Informator.net.
Saying it's time to move on from Jeffrey Epstein, but the specter of his old friend just won't go away.
It's all been a big hoax. It's perpetrated by the Democrats, and some stupid Republicans and foolish Republicans fall into the net, and so they try and do the Democrats' work.
Will you ask Attorney General Pam Bondi to release more documents to finally put this controversy to bed?
Yeah, whatever's credible, she can release.
All right, guys, this is AP. Is it possible that it's time for us to move on from Trump? I mean, I know that's sacrilegious to a lot of you, but look what's going on. There's a lot of controversy in the news, a lot of promises being broken, and not everybody is MAGA that voted for Trump. I think we all believe in MAGA, but that doesn't make us a part of the MAGA cult, I would say. And I say that word because, let's be honest, you have people on social media that believe no matter what Trump does, you need to stay loyal to him. They don't realize that that's not the way it works. When it comes to politicians and government, the government's supposed to be for the people. So we're not supposed to be loyal to Trump. Trump's supposed to be loyal to us. We like his ideas. That's why we voted him in. We wanted him to make some change. That's why we voted him in. We also wanted him to stick by what he was talking about, what he was going to do for this country, get us out of wars, bring out the Epstein files, do all the promises he made, right? Immigration, everything else. So to hold him accountable doesn't make you against MAGA in the sense of the philosophy. It doesn't make you against it. It's just saying, I want accountability. You said you were going to do this, so I need you to do this. And let's not forget that a lot of us, his followers, are Christians. I know there's plenty of you that are not, and so you don't care what he does. You don't care about his ethics. You don't care about his morals. But a lot of us do. We do care about that, and we have conflict in us. Should I be voting for a guy that is going to protect pedophiles or is a pedophile for all we know? I would say that's 50-50. You could make a case that he's on that list, these so-called files or list. He's probably on there. There's probably a lot of very powerful people. It's not ridiculous to assume that powerful people protect powerful people. You know that this channel is specifically, we talk about God and how we interpret God into our lives today. So this is important, I think, because when it comes to politics, especially right now, they have to do with almost anything. When you think of the world and where we're headed, where we're going, and if you think of it biblically, because there is politics in the Bible, as we know, the one world government and all those things in the book of Revelations. So politics means something. So even though this channel is to talk about our spirituality, our relationship with God, these things come up from time to time, and I need to talk about them. Unlike other people, like other influencers or whoever you watch, I don't make any money off this. I have stated many times my reason for even doing this is to help further along people in their faith with God. So that being said, let's get into this one. Oh, real quick, please subscribe to the channel. That would be great, and it would help us out. And plus, you're going to spread the word, and that's always a good thing. So, anyways, when we're talking about Epstein and what's been going on, this is where the relationship between God and politics, you get this clash, because many of us are Christians that vote, because we see the world going in a way we don't necessarily agree with. So we feel like, okay, we got to take a stance, we got to do something, whether it be voting against abortion or legalizing drugs, whatever, anything that's morality based, a Christian is probably going to take part in. So when you think of the presidential races, I think a lot of Christians vote because, well, let's be honest, we don't want the left to take over. Most Christians lean right, and the reason why is because of God and faith. When you look at the Democratic Party, they don't resemble anything they used to resemble. Like back in the 90s and before then, they used to talk about God. They used to do things that Christians would agree with. Like they used to be against marriage. The got to be sensitive on these topics, or else you just get banned. But they used to be with whatever the Bible said, and they're no longer that anymore. They've changed. They're radical in a sense. So I think a lot of Christians end up voting Republican because they align more with the faith. And now I will tell you that doesn't make Republicans, conservatives, or any of them any better in the sense of, do they really believe in God? Do they really want to push God's message, or do they just have a different set of beliefs that are equally as bad, or maybe on the same level as bad as, say, the Democrats or liberals? Like, for instance, often when in the past, when I used to think Republicans or conservative, I used to think the love of money. And that is something to this day is still a fact. But you could say both Democrats and Republicans both have that stance. Everybody loves money. You know, most people on this planet love money. You're not supposed to, but that's the way it is, right? So we know that to a large extent that money runs the world, and it's going to fuel many of the sins and terrible things that end up happening to people in general in other countries, like the simple fact that many people suffer around the world because of the love of money, because we'll go and take resources, we go to war, we do all these things. So as a Christian, we vote Republican, conservative, we voted for Trump because we wanted to take this more of a America first stance, because it doesn't sound like it's very peaceful in a sense, but it's not true. All we're really trying to say is, if you take care of your home, you can then try to help everyone else. It's kind of hard to help everyone else when you don't even have your own home in order. It seems to me basic knowledge. So I'm already kind of going off too far. So let's just get back into what we want to talk about today. Maybe we should replace Trump. And I know this is already going to cause this firestorm, but the truth is, we have to really look at this, at least from a biblical point of view as a Christian. Why are we at odds with this? I think the answer to that is simple, because it comes down to morality. I mean, do you really want to go against God and vote somebody in or back somebody up, even though you feel that person may be a terrible sinner? Because don't get me wrong, we're all sinners, but if you're a pedophile or protecting pedophiles, that's a whole different ball game there. If you feel someone is doing that and you're protecting them, I think you know inside that that's damaging to your soul. And I'm not here to judge you as in you're going to heaven or hell, but we know what the Bible says. We know what it says about people that do sins that are superior. You know, basically, it's a grave sin. That's all I'm saying. And we don't want to support things like that. If you're a true Christian, you just can't. You're not going to be able to sleep at night. You're gonna have guilt, and you don't want that. So let's talk about this. Let's talk about what happened with the Epstein thing, and why in my opinion, why we need to start looking at possibly, and I say possibly, replacing Trump. So let's talk about Epstein before. These were the negative things that Trump had said about Jeffrey Epstein. I was not a fan of Jeffrey Epstein. That I can tell you. He said that in 2019 in a press conference. I knew him like everybody in Palm Beach knew him. People in Palm Beach knew him. He was not a man I respected. He said that also in 2019. He was a fixture in Palm Beach. Everybody knew him, but I had a falling out with him a long time ago. He said that in a Fox interview. And this is true. I've heard about Epstein. I heard that a lot of people knew wherever he lived over there in Florida, in Palm Beach, he was someone that, I mean, they named a plane, right? His plane was called the Lolita Express, which I believe is named after a movie or a book. I think it's a book. And basically it was the book was about a pedophile, and they named his plane that. So that means people around him in his circles knew that he was this guy. So Trump is already alluding to that. When he says that people know about him over there, you know, that he was known, I mean, Trump knew what this guy was. All right, so he said, here's another comment. He said, he liked young women. I was not a fan of that at all. He said that in 2019. And I believe I heard a video where Trump actually says he's kind of was in the same at a period in his time. He mentioned young girls. He didn't say ages though or anything like that. But Trump has said weird things about his daughter, like in the past when Trump was a lot younger, and Ivanka Trump was young, and he would say weird things, things that dads don't say about their daughters, like "I would marry her," or talk about say her cleavage or whatever. Like he has said those things, and that's not deniable. Like I said, I'm not this MAGA guy that's just going to look past these things. I saw it, you know. Even when I voted for Trump, I voted not because of Trump's character. That was never a thing for me. I never really felt Trump was religious or believed in God a whole lot. I think he may believe a little bit more after the whole assassination attempt, but I don't believe he's that Christian. I don't fool myself like I think a lot of people do. That's a part of having wisdom, reading the Bible and loving God. Like, come on, let's be real. I mean, that's what God does. He opens your eyes to what's reality and what's not. And I think a lot of these so-called Christians on the right, they can't distinguish the two. And when you hear them talk, is that it's as if they love Trump more than they love Jesus. And it's really weird. It's a weird thing I've witnessed. Like I said, that's not all of them, so I'm not gonna throw everyone in that basket. But you see them. I read their posts. I look at them, and I'm like, what the hell are you talking about? It's like they can't separate the two. But I can, because, like I said, to me, politicians are like the stock market. They go up and down, and as they do things you like, you say good, great job, and as they do things that you don't like, you say it too. You say nah, I don't like it. I don't agree with that. And that's the way it works in politics. There's no one that's ever going to please everybody. So it's always going to be a negative, this love and hate relationship. It's always going to be something like that. But I will tell you, I've defended Trump for a long time. I did know he said a lot of these weird things, but I'm also a believer in Christ that people change. And a lot of the things I heard him say that were stupid were way back when, in the 90s and stuff like that, or early 2000s. I mean, you have to give people a chance to change. I don't know how many years you spread that out on. Like, has do you give somebody 5 years, 3 years, and say, can you change within that amount of time? I don't know if there's an actual time, but I'm a believer in second, third chances, all that, because that's what Christ gives us, right? He gives us almost unlimited chances. So I like to live what I read in the Bible. So I am human and I do get upset, but I will try to give people several chances. So, anyways, let's move on this little list here. So, when pressed in 2023 interviews, Trump responded to renewed Epstein interest with, "He's dead, he's gone, nobody cares anymore." 1992 Mar-a-Lago party with Epstein. Trump and Epstein seen party with cheerleaders. Footage exists. That is true. You just saw that in a little clip I showed you where he's hung out with Epstein. There's pictures, there's plenty of pictures of showing him with Epstein. There's pictures of him dancing. There's pictures of him in clubs, and there's audio and video of these type of things. So, in 2007 conviction and 2019 arrest, Trump said this was Epstein who was convicted and arrested. "I was not a fan of his, that I can tell you." Claimed he hadn't spoken to Epstein in 15 years. That was a contradiction. Flight logs and photos suggest ongoing contacts into the 2000s. He kicked Epstein out of Mar-a-Lago reportedly over hitting an underage girl. He never publicly mentioned that until much later. So those are things that are reported or alleged, like that one. I know he said he kicked him out before. Was it a underage girl? I don't know. I can't tell you if that's true. That is just something I looked up. I used AI, and we already know AI is not 100%. It just pulls stuff off the internet. So I do find it interesting that it's now saying that it was a young girl, but we do know that Trump mentioned that Epstein liked young girls, and he did that in a couple of interviews that I personally seen and heard myself. So what Trump claimed he do as president again. Okay, this is Epstein related. This is Trump now ran for president. He's president now. So this is the kind of stuff he told us, right? His voters. He told his base, and then he told the voters. He promised to release the Epstein client list, right? "When I'm president again, we're going to get to the bottom of Epstein. When I'm president again, we're going to get to the bottom. I'll release everything. We'll unseal it all. Name, logs, everything." He claimed that the media and elites were protecting the list. So see, he's even saying that he's fueling what a lot of us already believe. We believe that there was a cover up. I mean, it, right now you can look at Tucker Carlson. He just had this guy on. You can hear Candace Owens. You can hear many people have really dug deep into the case. Me, I didn't dig that deep because I didn't need to. To me, this has been going on through all of history. So elites do this, right? I mean, what was that movie, Eyes Wide Shut by Kubrick? You see that movie, you see what's going on here. As a writer myself, I don't talk about this much, but I have written novels. I don't talk about it much, but I can tell you as a writer, that's what we do. We gather information, we research, we gather information. There's truth, there's rumors, there's all these things, and we put it together and we make a story. That's why when you watch movies, often these movies seem to be predicting things. It's not because the writer's a prophet, it's because we gather information. If I'm going to write a sci-fi novel, right, about say like the one I have written, I'm not even going to tell you the name of it, but it's about the brain chip, which Elon is talking about. I wrote that book in 2016. The reason why I wrote it in 2016 is because when you went on to these tech magazines, they talked about it. They would have these captains of industry, and they would talk to they would tell in interviews what they planned on doing in the future. So you get information like that and you kind of see the ideas, and then you hear rumors. You hear these little type of conspiracy. You'll hear like stars talking to a scientist, and then they'll mention something like, yeah, so and so said that they believe one day in the future they're going to be able to connect everybody through their minds and stuff, because these plans of living forever and all these things under the sun, they exist. Okay, when you have a lot of money, you have a lot of power, you have a lot of ego, and especially if you have no God, right? Because you don't have wisdom if you don't have God. So you'll have a ton of knowledge, but you won't have any wisdom. So they get all this money, all this power, and so the sky's the limit with them. So they're going to dabble in all this crazy stuff, and that's why you got people like Epstein. Uh, it's They do everything all over the world that satisfies the flesh, but it isn't enough because they don't have God in their life. It's not enough, so they get weird. So the Epstein case, that's why I didn't need to dig in it, because once I heard it, I was like, I believe it. The elites do this kind of stuff. They protect each other. They have these fetishes, they have these secret societies. I know enough. You know what I mean? I mean, what was that movie, the Skull and Bones, that came out a long time ago? It talked about it. It talked about how many presidents came from these secret societies. How about when JFK had his speech about secret societies? They exist. The elites have always had places where they go where you're just not accepted. You're not. It's weird because it's kind of like you're not supposed to be. What do you call that? When you don't let anybody into your establishment. You can't be. What's the word? I can't think of right now. But they have places where you're just not allowed in if you're not powerful. And it's more powerful than rich, because there's plenty of rich people. But we're talking old money. We're talking uh, genealogy, ancestries, your ancestors, who they are, all those things matter. And they have these clubs where you're just not allowed in. And in those clubs, they talk about the things they're into. And I don't doubt that it's a bunch of weird shit. A lot of these people, they don't grow up like us. They don't grow up like the normal person does. So, sometimes when they're young, they're awkward, and now when they grow up, they got limited money. They can do whatever they want. Sad to say that a lot of our people will do whatever they want. They become their slaves, not slaves like, you know, back in the day, but you're slaves to them, as in, like Epstein, he would have that woman, Maxwell, right? She would go pick up the girls. And one of her tactics was offering money. So you can paint the picture yourself. She pulls up in a Corvette or a Lamborghini, on the poor sides of town, because that's what Epstein would want her to go. She would go find these high school girls that probably looked already a little promiscuous, and then she would come out and offer some money. Hey, look at my car. Want to come hang out? You give you a couple $100, and back in that time, like in the 90s, a couple $100 is like $1,000. to a young kid, and it's like, hey, all you gotta do is massage, and then these girls get entrapped in a grown man's mansion with the fence, and then they're scared shitless. Like, what do I do? How do I get out of this situation? So they're gonna end up doing things that they don't want to do, and then Epstein has so much money, and then old money. Um, he had power backers and a lot of influence, and he knew people that were influential. So that's why he never got in trouble, because that's what elites do. So that's why I believed it pretty quickly, because we know this is what they do. And then when he died, why do so many people come out with that conclusion that he killed himself? Because I'm not the only one that thinks this way. A lot of us do. You know, the separation here is biblically is that if you just go off your knowledge, you're going to hit dead ends over and over and over again. When you have the wisdom of God, you see past a lot of things that others can't. And sometimes it's not even provable. Most conspiracies are not provable. You can't prove them, and you're probably going to die. Most of these are never going to be proven because the information gets hidden. But that's why you develop the theory, and if it's a good one, usually the theories I follow is because there's enough evidence there that says yes, some crazy shit went down, but we just can't prove every aspect of it. JFK, we know who's assassinated by who, right? That's the question. Who did it? I mean, I haven't looked into the files since they've been released, but what did I expect to hear? I mean, I'll eventually look into it. We have the tools with AI to look into it. But what did I think happened? Well, it's the government, the Pentagon. He didn't want to get into wars. The war machine, right? He mentioned that. Who was it? Was that FDR? I don't know. I ain't bringing Chatty on, so I'm just throwing this out there. One of you will know who I'm talking about. They talked about that, about the Pentagon and the war machine. Like it needs to be fed, and it needs to get its way because there's so much money involved. There's so much power involved. It's like Game of Thrones in real life. You know what I mean? So this Epstein thing is a no-brainer. It did happen. But those are the things that Trump was saying. Like he said he was kowtowing to us as voters, saying, hey, I'm going to release those files because we care. And the reason why we care is because these girls that get abused, they're usually the middle class. You know what I mean? Girls from the middle class or below. The elites, maybe they have those problems, but we know that that's their club. That's their club. So it's probably not going to happen the same way it happens with the masses. Plus, there's more of us. So it's simple numbers. They're simple numbers. They're just more young girls in the middle class in the poor neighborhoods than there is in the richest neighborhoods because there's just less people. So it's our kids that have to go through this. And that's why us as voters were so interested, right? But anyways, this is what Trump does afterwards, right? So after they come out, Pam Bondi says, okay, there's nothing here. There's nothing to see here. Kash Patel, Bongino, I know people want to stick up for them. I've wrote an article, and I've been ahead of the curve on the informator.net. You can see the articles there. I've been ahead of the curve, and you're even going to see here because I'm going to point this stuff out. But anyways, she comes out and says there's nothing to see, and now Trump, what do you do? What he's been doing lately, what's been driving me crazy. He's flipping. Trump is flipping. I know a lot of you can't put it together, or you don't want to. You're blinding yourself. But Trump is flipping, and I'm being honest with you. Right? Okay, so now it's called the Jeffrey Epstein hoax. He's trying to name it because this is what he does, right? He names it, tries to get rid of it. Dismissive. Let's get rid of it. Let's make it a name, a funny name. We'll laugh it out of existence. That's what he's trying to do. And so he wants to call it the Epstein hoax. And he got backlash. And he should have. Because he's being a complainer. You're being a complaining little bitch. So when you do stuff like that, what do you expect? You start to look suspicious because that's what you should. Anyone with a brain should look at you and say, what's going on here? Why are you talking that way? You weren't doing that before? Are you on the list? You know what's going on? I think those are reasonable questions. So that's what he said. He's calling it a scam. It's orchestrated by the Democrats, right? He said all these things. He called us stupid, right? Stupid weaklings. called Republicans who push for more Epstein transparency stupid people, weaklings, accusing them of doing the Democrats' work, right? Because that's what he did. Those are debate tactics. He's trying to push blame, get it off himself. This is how you put it together. This is the wisdom. This is the wisdom part. Why are you doing this? Why are you pushing it all around? I have my thoughts. Like I said, I think it's 50-50 that Trump's on there because from the weird shit that he acted with his daughter, right, to him trying to cover it up. But I say 50-50. Why do I say 50-50? Because it doesn't always mean guilty by association. You know, he may have not went that far. I don't know. But 50-50 is a high number. So it wouldn't surprise me if he was. If it was, I mean, I think today that was just released. Was it the Washington Journal? I'll put that up in a bit.
Welcome to the Informator.net.